Hi everyone, I'm Kelly Close with HealthyPlace.com. Today we're going to be talking about how ADHD affects relationships. First, we're going to bring on Tonie Ansa, who feels weak, unsupported, and rejected in her relationships because of the ADHD. And then we're going to bring on Dr. Michelle Frank, a specialist in the diagnosis and treatment of ADHD. So hello everybody, thank you for coming. I might as well just invite Tonie on. So let me find her. Let's see. I'm looking for her. I don't see Tonie yet. I see Dr. Frank. Hello, Dr. Frank. Thank you for being here today. I am not seeing Tonie yet. Okay. Why don't you guys tell me how you experience ADHD while we're waiting for Tonie? What's it like in your relationships when because of ADHD? We'd like to know. That's why we're here. So please type your comments in the box and we'll try to talk about it. I'm sorry, everybody. We'll be talking about ADHD, how it complicates relationships in just a minute. While you're here, why don't you tell us how ADHD interferes with your relationships? I'd really like to see that, and maybe we can just start a discussion. Hold on. That's not her yet. Aha! I see Tonie. All right. Let me bring you in. And want to invite Tonie. I'm sorry, now this is me taking forever. Let's see. Tonie. Tonie. See. Where is this? Hi, Tonie. I'll wave at you. I'd like to bring you in. I'm so sorry. This is... Tonie, do you happen to see a request to join the interview? Because I'm not seeing an invitation button. Hello, Tonie. Oh, just about.
Okay. There
Hi,
we go.
Tonie. I'm
Hey.
sorry about that delay.
No, it's
How are
all
you
good.
today?
I was trying to get on myself, and I'm like, I don't think I'm doing this right. So let me just check what I see.
Well, we got it figured out. And so we're talking about how ADHD has interfered in your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you can tell me how that's happened.
So how it's interfered with my relationship. So I saw a lot about like boyfriend girlfriend relationship. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So my boyfriend or fiance is pretty organized, and
Mm-hmm.
he's very orderly. He likes to plan. He has a step-by-step process, and I am not like that. I'm very chaotic. I am just kind of all over the place. I just do whatever comes along. So it's pretty frustrating for him. Um, just the fact that I'm messy, I'm all over the place. I never know what I'm going to do. I just kind of go with the flow. I procrastinate to the last minute. We're late to every event.
Well, Kim
So,
says that her husband just doesn't understand. You know how is your boyfriend handling ADHD? Does he know you have it?
yes, he does know I have it. And he didn't believe in mental health for a very long time. But after being with me for some years, he has come around. He does see I guess he sees the struggle. I guess he sees when I am trying to clean. I go from dishes to laundry to this to that, and nothing gets done because I'm doing 7 things at once. And so, just educating him and trying to get him to understand, like, I'm not choosing to be this way. This is how I am. It's taken some time. He's still slowly coming around.
So, in the beginning, before he knew anything, how did he react to all of those characteristics and of ADHD, all of those symptoms?
So when we first got together, I had depression. So the ADHD wasn't very evident until later on in my adult life, and he was pretty accepting of me having depression. He was really there for me. Um, just that the depression part wasn't a problem. The ADHD, though, since it showed up later in our relationship, he didn't believe it. If that answers that question.
Because that does, it understands it. Val says her boyfriend has ADHD, and it makes my boyfriend has ADHD, and it makes me feel like I'm being put under performance pressure. So, do you feel that in your relationship with your boyfriend? Like you need to do something that you feel like you just can't wrap yourself around?
Yeah, all the time. I feel like um, I'm always having to go the extra mile. I'm always having to, um, like perform, like I guess perform like I like used to. I guess as far as like motherhood and tasks go. So I
Mm-hmm.
definitely do feel like the performance pressure performance, especially like being a mom. I feel like I have to be everything and do everything and wear all the hats all the time. And I can't wear all the hats. So
Well, how do you think your family? You have children, right?
hmm
So, how do you think your relationship with your children is turning out?
um with the kids, it's kind of hard because, especially during quarantine, they're kids and so they're bored, and I have to be the one to keep them entertained. I'm the one home with them all the time. And, I have to plan everything for them. And that's where I struggle is with planning. I'm not good at, okay, at 10 a.m. a snack, and then at this time it's crafts. Like, I can't be a homeschool teacher. And so my kids are bored all the time. They're going stir crazy because I just can't organize a day for them to keep them from being bored or eating up everything. So,
Well, how do you maybe handle that? With the children, does it ever make you upset or make them upset or angry because they're feeling stir crazy?
definitely, my son is always bored. And with with him, he's 6, so he vocalizes his frustration a lot. He wants to do something fun. He wants to go out. He wants to, um, like, he wants to go out and be a kid. And it just, I'm sorry, give me a second. It's just, it's the hardest with me and him. My relationship with him is definitely strained because of that. Because I just can't show up. I don't have the energy for all the things a 6-year-old wants to do.
I can understand that. Um, so, do you have complications in other relationships?
Oh yeah, most certainly. um, the biggest one being my mom, and I want to do my best not to like throw my mom under the bus because I love my mother. She was a good mom, but part of my issue with ADHD is that she doesn't believe that I have it. And it is an ongoing battle trying to convince her that I do have it, because I think if she were to admit that I had ADHD, it would admit, I guess, flaws in her parenting,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak. And so, any talk about ADHD, that I could possibly have it, she's just very dismissive of it. She's like, no, not you. You weren't the child to have it. There's, no. And, I take stimulant medication. She's like, I just don't know why you take that. I don't know why you still have these issues. And it's just hard. It's hard to get along with my mom.
Well, Mark says in the promo for the show, you said you feel unsupported. He wants to hear more about that.
How I feel unsupported.
Yeah.
I mostly feel unsupported because I just don't feel like anyone believes that I have it. I think I'm really good at wearing a mask. I'm very good at covering it up because I can perform. I went to college. I did all the, you know, notable things. And so it's like, there's no way you could have ADHD. Look at all that you've done. And it's so invalidating for it's just so invalidating for people to use that to counteract that I'm actually struggling and sometimes I'm even suffering with this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think
there's nobody there. Well, in your relationship, let's say with your mom, and feeling unsupported from her, you said that she doesn't want to believe that you even have ADHD, and she says that you're the kid who wouldn't have it, comparing you to your siblings, I think.
Right.
So how did being unsupported feel like growing up?
So I know people who have ADHD are probably no stranger to this. It felt like, I got in trouble a lot because I was talkative, I was easily distracted. So as a kid, if I didn't have a name for it, I just knew something was off. I knew that I was a little different. I knew that perhaps my brain was a little bit different, but I didn't know what to call it. I just kind of toughed it out. But frequently, I got yelled at, I got punished, I got spanked for being lazy, not showing up, not making A's and B's, being late to things. And, especially when it pertained to academics, I got punished a lot. And I wish that my mom would have known, like, I had ADHD, so I was struggling not being lazy.
Do you think that she should have known something was wrong? And what symptoms do you think maybe she should have noticed?
I think that she should have noticed my inability to focus and my inability to sustain tasks for a long time. Especially if she would have ever just gone through my notebook, she would have seen I'm not learning anything in class. I'm drawing Pac-Man and, writing my name in cursive. And if she would have just gone through my backpack and asked me, what did you learn today? She would have known nothing. I learned nothing. I doodled all day long.
Let's see. Did you try to tell her what was going on?
My grades slipped a couple times and she's just intolerant to it. There was no explanation. There's no excuse for poor grades in her household. I don't think an explanation would have done me any justice, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. So do you think if you had been diagnosed with ADHD when you were younger, living with your mother and your family, do you think that they would have been more supportive? Is anyone in your family supportive of you?
Yeah, my brother, I think, is definitely pretty supportive because he understands mental health himself. And then my sister is very supportive, especially as she's very open to learning and she's very open to understanding what ADHD is. So I'm definitely supported by my siblings in that regard. I do think it's kind of a double-edged sword. I think if I would have known if I had it as a kid, it would have hindered me to some degree. But it also, it's really tricky. It's hard for me to say.
I understand that. This kind of gets intermingled with relationships and with everything you do in life because of the symptoms of ADHD. So how does that affect you at work with your relationships with your coworkers?
With my coworkers, they make jokes about me all the time because I cannot get to work on time. Luckily, I have really understanding bosses, but I realize whatever job I get next, I will not be as lucky. But
Mhm.
at work, I work in a field, I work in healthcare. And so I'm a CT technologist, and thank goodness I work where I don't have to do the same thing for more than like 10 minutes. I'm going from patient to patient. I might be scanning someone's head 1 minute, scanning someone's abdomen the next. I'm walking all over the hospital. It is perfect for my ADHD.
That sounds good.
Perfect. So it works out well.
Well, Sissy says she has ADHD, and her husband is always upset with her because she forgets things, and it makes her feel horrible.
Mhm.
So, she's wondering how you handle that.
How I handle, like, my fiance specifically, forgetting things, gosh. Susie, we're in the same boat because he's actually in the chat. He could probably tell you because we have arguments about that quite a bit. He doesn't understand how 1 minute I could be thinking about something and then 2 seconds later forget about it. So how I handle it, I just remind him. Like, Chris, I have ADHD. Um, like, be a little patient with me. And that's really just being honest. Like, I have ADHD, and that's
Does
where
he
I
ever
leave it at.
accuse you of using that for an excuse?
Oh, yes. Yeah, he does. And so sometimes I try not to use it, but sometimes it's the truth. I really do try to come up with better excuses, but the reality is I do have ADHD and I do forget. And I just think educating him on ADHD and having him see, read about it. I sent him materials, I sent him articles, I sent him the stuff that I write about ADHD. I tell him about the
Mhm.
research. So he knows, like, I'm not making this up. This is real, this is studied. And that helps.
That's good that he's coming around like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, he is. He's getting a lot better.
Mindful Fitness says, going back to your mother, do you think that your mother missed your ADHD symptoms? Was it a cultural difference or a generational difference?
I think it's both, but I definitely think it is cultural. My mother is Ghanaian, so she is not American, and it I just think, Africans' expectations for their children are you're going to grow up, you're going to be a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer, a nurse if you have to. And that's where that line is drawn in African culture. And so, there's no possible way that you could have ADHD and become all of those things. As an immigrant, she moved to the United States for a better life. So, in her mind, I guess, like I said, everything is about grades and career and make a lot of money and be successful. And so definitely culturally, I think that's also why it was missed. But then also because I did pretty okay in school. So there was no reason, and I'm not hyperactive. So there's no reason to suspect anything unless you really paid attention to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, that makes sense. And so it wasn't, um, I know that 10 years ago, ADHD was just starting to come to the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
So was there anything that, I don't know, that maybe she was in the wrong generation to understand what might be happening with you?
Yeah, my sister, when we talk about this, she brings that up a lot, that there's a lot more information about ADHD now than there was, 20 something odd years ago. So I do try to be more empathetic towards my mother because of that. Um, and see, look, I forgot the question already.
Okay. The rejection that you feel, does that come from everybody all the time, or is it more focused on certain people at certain times?
Mm, I would say, sorry, I'm holding my phone and I'm kind of nervous, so I'm shaking a little bit. The rejection I feel, I don't experience it so much as an adult. Um, because I'm a little bit more comfortable in my skin. I'm getting more comfortable with having ADHD and saying, this is who I am. And if you don't understand it, I am happy to talk to you about it. And if not, then goodbye. Um, the rejection I felt was mostly as a teenager, and I think that's just, age appropriate. But the rejection also is just mostly from my mom. I think of all people, that's who I want to see me and to understand me and to validate me. She's my only parent that I have. And to just not feel supported by her emotionally is pretty painful.
Yes, I can understand that also. Let's see, I think, what do you plan to do going forward in the relationship with your mother? Do you feel like there's anything you could change, or even with your boyfriend or your children, that would help you to feel better?
With my mom, I really have considered going to counseling with her and having a mediator involved, because conversing with her always becomes emotional and tension filled, and there's a lot of anger and hurt involved. And so I don't feel comfortable just yet being with her face to face. So I think there needs to be like a professional involved. And then with my children, I'm always trying to find fun things to do for them. And I'm just always looking at creative ways to be a better parent, because it's really hard being a manager of children and like lacking executive functions.
Yeah.
And then with Chris, my fiance, like I said, he's getting a lot better. He's, becoming a lot more understanding. So sometimes when things aren't done, he doesn't say anything about it. I know it drives him crazy to see like chaos and mess and toys and dishes, but I do see him just look and then walk away. So he's a lot better.
Well, that's great. And on that note, I think we'll go ahead and let you go.
Okay.
And thank you so much for being here and being so open and honest about everything today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. All right.
Thank you. If I can figure this out.
Okay. Me too.
Okay. Next, I'm going to bring on Dr. Michelle Frank. She's a specialist in the diagnosis and treatment of ADHD. And I know she was here at the beginning, so I just need to find her. Here she is. Go live. See, that was much easier. All right. Just wait for her to come on here. Hi, Dr. Frank. How are you doing today?
Good, doing well. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on and talking to us today. And what struck you about Tonie's story?
Well, first of all, I want to really thank Tonie for her vulnerability, for coming out of hiding with her story, and this platform, because it's so hard to do, especially for folks who think outside the box and have spent their whole life learning how to mask and navigate social situations to hide their differences. So to come on here and share that is awesome. And Chris's comments down there, he looks like a supportive partner. But what I will say is, this is the story of ADHD in relationships right there. Everything she talked about, from growing up and kind of being, assigning the brain-based differences to character traits, to internalizing messages that these differences are character flaws, that they are bad and therefore there's something bad about you, to misunderstandings and the meaning making and frustrations that can happen in everyday sort of ADHD moments within other relationships too. Speaking on the research a bit, for the majority of what we know about ADHD until the last 10, 15 years, and even still is a little restricted, but it was based on white hyperactive school-age boys. And it was all about academics, and it was about the kid climbing the walls. So women like Tonie, who did well in school, who are high performers, who are high functioning, who are smart. She is a Black woman who is high functioning with ADHD. She is likely to not get properly diagnosed per what we know to be true about the research. It just wasn't there. And so parents didn't know. A lot of parents would say, well, you know, like, you're not ADHD. ADHD is that hyper boy, like, bouncing off the walls. You don't have
That
you don't have
reminds me
problems in school.
of the relationship with her mother. The clash there, do you think that there's a way that they can solve that they can come together and Tonie can feel better about her relationship?
Yeah, I think we heal in relationships as best we can. So I think there's always hope for relationships when both people are wanting and able and willing to come together and do the work. But in this case, I do think Tonie's onto something, that maybe having another person there as a support system and an objective mediator would be helpful. But it's also about learning how to have these conversations in the first place. So Tonie's mother is a good example of someone who learned herself that ADHD is a flaw. It's a character flaw. It's a parenting flaw, that there is something wrong if you have ADHD. Therefore, my kid can't have ADHD because my kid is great. Right, so it creates that dissonance. As opposed to, you know, what we talk to parents who have kids with ADHD now is honoring and acknowledging the differences. You have ADHD and your brain works differently. And sometimes that's really hard and sometimes it's really cool. It makes you unique. But Tonie's mother, her generation, never learned how to have that conversation. So it looks like both people being able to talk about this and understand how, you know, like, so mom, what does ADHD mean to you? And then listening and reflecting back. And then Tonie really saying, I feel, about, I need, right? So we're actively communicating in these scenarios about ADHD or about ADHD moments, how it feels when someone does XYZ or something occurs, and what we need around that. What both people are ultimately looking for is connection, oftentimes. And it translates to partnerships, where ADHD moments in daily life, they're opportunities for connection and growth and understanding, or they're pathways to conflict and misattunement and disconnection.
It's kind of like what this person says. Unfocused mind says, I've been diagnosed with adult ADHD and my family doesn't believe in ADHD. They keep calling me a flake. It's so frustrating and angering, and I don't know what to do. So what would somebody who's kind of against their whole family, do you have any suggestions for them?
It's so hard, and my heart really goes out to those in those situations, because like Tonie said, the one person I really need the support from is the person I'm not getting it from. It definitely helps to get the support elsewhere, to be part of supportive communities and people who do get you and see you and have similar quirks and challenges. But I think a big piece of it is learning about it yourself, processing your own feelings about it and about maybe ways you feel tangled up, your character feels tangled up with your brain-based differences, so you have a lot of shame. And then it's what Tonie did, which is provide, here's a podcast I listened to that, gosh, that really spoke to what the conversation we had the other day, or remember that one time XYZ happened, here, this article talks about that in this great way. It's providing that opportunities for education. It's sitting down with someone and saying, look, I know we might not be on the same page, you might not fully get it, but I really would love it if you could understand where I'm coming from. So you're not starting the conversation and trying to get to ultimate agreement. You're trying to just open the door to increased understanding and increased listening.
It sounds like what Tonie is able to do with her boyfriend. to
Exactly. He's open, right? He's learning, he's open. It might frustrate him, but they're having those conversations. She's able to say, well, that was an ADHD moment, and they're able to work with it. But if you're dealing with someone who isn't there yet, you have to start a little bit more slowly. Open the door to, I know you might not agree with it. However, it would mean a lot to me if you would understand how I'm feeling and where I'm coming from and what I experience. Can I send you a podcast? And it's inching forward like that.
Well, that sounds really smart. It seems like it would work with anybody who loved you, really. So, I guess, how would you sum it up? With these problematic relationships, what is the number one best thing someone can do?
The person with ADHD, the person without ADHD, or the relationship together?
The person with ADHD and how that works in the relationship.
There are a few things really quickly. The first is that the person with ADHD should really find their own support and work through internalized messages of shame that they have, that I have these differences, therefore I'm bad. Because when they are able to untangle that a little bit, when they have these hard conversations with folks later, they're able to kind of work through it. The second is educate themselves and then gently educate the people around them, provide them with education, and then seek support and seek communities of people who support you, who are like-minded and who value what you have to offer in the world. So you're getting that really rich connection, no matter what. Sometimes it's in our chosen families, not our families of origin. And so obviously reach out to a therapist if that's like a big issue, because that can get really complicated. But I would say start with understanding yourself and then gently educating others. And then have conversations about your experience, and practice letting down that guard where it feels safe so that people can understand. Maybe they don't get the label, but maybe they understand the experience underneath it.
That's perfect advice, and I think a lot of people will get something from that and be able to apply it to their own relationships, and hopefully you've helped people do that today. Go off with an idea on how to, handle this issue. So I'm going to let you go now.
All right. Really thanks for having me.
Being here. Yeah, you were great. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Okay, so I'm from HealthyPlace.com. There's a lot of information about adult ADHD there. And our first guest, Tonie is the adult ADHD blogger. So you'll want to go there and check out what she has to say, and the other information on Healthy Place. There's a lot of it. And I appreciate your questions, and I appreciate you being here today. And thanks again. Bye.